A woven tapestry once redirected the flow of naval power. This is the story of the Weaver's Map, a medieval masterpiece that concealed vital secrets within its colorful threads. By the end of this journey, you will grasp how art, espionage, and warfare intertwined in the medieval world. We will uncover how a decorative wall hanging revealed hidden coastlines and altered the destinies of kings and fleets. How did a simple textile become a weapon, and who were the artists behind this grand deception? What does this fusion of beauty and strategy reveal about the hidden forces that shape history? Sunlight streams through high windows, catching the dust motes dancing above the looms. In a quiet Flemish workshop, artisans work for years, their hands guiding fine wool and shimmering silk threads. They are creating a grand tapestry, a sprawling scene of coastal villages and legendary sea monsters, commissioned by a wealthy merchant family to adorn their estate walls around the late 14th century. This was more than just a decoration. It was a statement of power and culture, a narrative woven into the very fabric of daily life. Art historians tell us these tapestries were the ultimate status symbol, their vibrant colors derived from precious natural dyes like madder root and woad. The technique itself was monumental, known as the hot list method, where the weavers worked on a vertical loom, painstakingly building the image from the back, unable to see the front as they progressed. They worked from a detailed cartoon, a full-scale drawing pinned beneath the warp threads, a slow and deliberate dance of creation. Each region depicted, from the rugged cliffs of Normandy to the sheltered ports of Brittany, was rendered with an artist's eye for detail. The maritime imagery was rich with symbolism, ships representing trade and prosperity, sea serpents embodying the unknown dangers of the ocean. In many ways, this tapestry was like the famous Bayeux Tapestry, telling a story through thread. But unlike that historical record, this Flemish masterpiece held a secret within its beautiful composition. How could a work of art created solely for beauty and prestige ever become a decisive tool of war? The answer lies not just in the threads, but in the turbulent world outside the workshop walls. The sea was a kingdom of chaos and opportunity. From the crowded harbors of Venice to the foggy wharfs of London, the creak of timber and the shouts of sailors signaled a constant struggle for mastery. Control of the waves meant control of wealth, of food, and of empires. This was the brutal reality of naval warfare in the 14th and 15th centuries. Fleets were built around sturdy cogs and swift galleys, floating fortresses where the primary tactic was to close the distance, grapple an enemy ship, and fight a bloody melee on the decks as if it were a land battle. The chronicler Jean Froissart wrote of the sea as the great stage for the ambitions of kings, where a single victory could secure a nation's supply lines and a single defeat could lead to starvation. Great maritime powers rose from this relentless competition. The Venetian Republic, with its unmatched fleet of galleys, dominated the Mediterranean trade. The Hanseatic League, a powerful alliance of merchant guilds, controlled the North Seas from their strongholds in Lubeck and Hamburg. Meanwhile, England and France were locked in the 100 Years' War, a conflict fought as fiercely on water as on land. Consider the Battle of Sluys in the year 1340. There, the English fleet did not rely on complex maneuvers. Instead, they used their ships as floating platforms for massed longbowmen, who rained down a storm of arrows upon the French vessels before the boarding parties even crashed together. It was a slaughter that demonstrated a grim truth. Victory often went to the side that best understood the battlefield, and that battlefield was not a flat, featureless plain. It was a treacherous, shifting expanse of water, governed by hidden sandbars, unpredictable currents, and coastlines that were often poorly charted or entirely unknown. How many admirals, you might wonder, saw their grand strategies shattered not by enemy steel, but by a reef that was not on any map? In this world, a commander's greatest weapon was not always his cannon, but his knowledge. A flickering lantern casts long shadows across the soot-stained fabric. It is the year 1482, and a devastating fire has swept through the Great Hall, leaving this once magnificent tapestry partially ruined. A naval cartographer, a guest of the estate, surveys the damage. His eye is drawn not to the charred edges, but to a place where the heat has blistered and peeled away the top layer of colorful thread. Beneath the surface, hidden for a century, he sees a ghostly network of fine lines and cryptic symbols. The decorative waves and sea monsters are merely a veil. Underneath lies a precise, scaled nautical chart of the English Channel. This was no mere work of art, it was a secret weapon disguised as decoration. Cartography historians call these portolan charts, and they were the most guarded secrets of any maritime power. Drawn on vellum with astonishing accuracy, they showed coastlines, harbors, and crucially, sea depths and sailing directions. To possess one was to hold the key to safe and rapid naval movement. Finding such a thing woven into a tapestry was, and remains, utterly unprecedented. The method of concealment was a work of genius in itself. The weavers used subtle variations in thread color, a shade of blue for a deep water channel, a hint of brown for a treacherous sandbar, integrating these navigational markers directly into the decorative elements. A sea serpent's coiled tail might trace the path of a safe sailing route, while the pattern of scales on a mythical fish could indicate the location of a submerged rock. The most accurately rendered regions were the very coastlines kingdoms fought to control, the strategic ports of the North Sea, and the narrow, easily blockaded English Channel. One compelling theory points to a Genos cartographer, a master of portolan charts, who was known to have traveled through Flanders during this period. Could he have been the one to provide the secret design, embedding his knowledge within a commission for a wealthy patron with hidden allegiances? This single discovery raises profound questions. Who was this map truly for? It was not for the public gallery, but for the private, discreet study of a select few. Why go to such extravagant, painstaking lengths to hide it? The answer lies in the value of the information itself. In an age of espionage, a chart carved on wood or drawn on parchment could be easily stolen or copied. But a chart woven into a 50-foot tapestry hanging in plain sight was the perfect hiding place. The secret was now revealed, setting the stage for its ultimate use in the great naval struggles of the age. These hidden depths gave any commander who understood the tapestry an almost supernatural advantage. A fleet could approach a hostile shore under the cover of darkness, its admiral confident in his knowledge of a deep water channel that bypassed the enemy's coastal defenses. He could identify sheltered anchorages invisible from the open sea, perfect for hiding an entire invasion force until the moment of attack. Naval strategists of the era, their thoughts preserved in Venetian archives, constantly stressed that successful landings depended not on brute force, but on this precise bathymetric knowledge, the understanding of what lay beneath the waves. One such strategist wrote that 1,000 ships are worthless if they cannot find a safe place to put their soldiers ashore. The weavers encoded this vital information with brilliant subtlety. The number of threads used in a specific shade of blue might correspond to a depth sounding, a secret count known only to the initiated. A cluster of green threads woven into a wave could signal a submerged sandbank, while a clear patch of cream-colored silk might indicate a deep, safe channel for the largest vessels. Harbors like Calais and Dartmouth, crucial strategic points in the endless conflict between England and France, were rendered with astonishing precision. Their approaches, the specific paths a ship must take to avoid running aground, were clearly laid out within the artwork. Imagine the English using this clandestine map during the 100 Years' War. While French lookouts scanned the horizon from their fortified cliffs, an English fleet could slip into a cove deemed unnavigable by all known charts. From there, they could launch a devastating raid on an undefended stretch of coastline, their soldiers appearing as if from nowhere. How many campaigns were decided not by the courage of knights, but by the quiet confidence of an admiral who knew the secrets of the seafloor? This was the first great strategic shift offered by the Weaver's map, turning the treacherous, unknown coast into a familiar and maneuverable battlefield. But the Tapestry's secrets ran deeper than the seafloor itself. A commander's gaze would then be drawn to the swirling patterns of waves and the sinuous bodies of sea monsters. To the uninitiated, these were mere decorative flourishes. To an informed admiral, they were a dynamic map of the ocean's hidden rivers, the powerful tidal currents that could make or break a naval campaign. For medieval sailors, this knowledge was typically passed down through generations by word of mouth, a fragile oral tradition easily lost. To have it preserved visually and so cleverly disguised was nothing short of revolutionary. The direction a sea serpent faced might indicate the dominant flow of a current at the flood tide. The density of woven threads in a wave pattern could suggest the current's speed, with tighter, more chaotic swirls marking dangerous, fast-moving water. Even the point where a stylized river emptied into the sea could be a critical marker, signaling a localized current that could push a ship safely into an estuary or dash it against a hidden sandbar. The strategic importance of this cannot be overstated. Timing an attack to coincide with a favorable tide meant a fleet could sweep into a harbor with astonishing speed, its arrival timed to the minute. Conversely, misunderstanding the tides could lead to catastrophe, stranding heavy warships on mudflats as the water receded, leaving them helpless targets. We see a powerful, if later, example in the Battle of the Chesapeake in 1781, where French Admiral de Grasse's understanding of the local tides and winds was instrumental in blocking the British fleet, a decisive action that led directly to the British surrender at Yorktown. While this occurred centuries after our tapestry was woven, the principle remained the same. How many medieval battles were won because one side could read the water's rhythm in a piece of cloth? This environmental wisdom, extracted from art, provided a navigational edge that was both subtle and profound. A captain no longer had to rely solely on the memory of an old sailor. He could consult a permanent, secret record hanging on a wall. A pilot could lose his ship in the fog with a single misjudgment, but the tapestry offered a way to see through the mist. Beyond the hidden channels and coded currents, the Weaver's map provided a third, crucial layer of intelligence, a visual directory of the coastline itself. Medieval sailors navigating by dead reckoning and the rare celestial sighting depended on recognizing terrestrial landmarks to confirm their position. Piloting manuals of the era, like the famous Rudder of the Sea, were essentially lists of these visual cues describing headlands, church steeples, and castle towers in painstaking detail. The tapestry did one better, it showed them. The weavers rendered these features with astonishing fidelity, likely working from sketches made by artists who had traveled on actual voyages. The iconic white cliffs of Dover were not just a smear of pale thread. They were depicted with their specific height and profile, a beacon for any ship approaching England. The distinctive spire of Notre Dame de Calais rose from the woven townscape, a perfect triangulation point for a captain trying to line up his entrance into the busy harbor. A lone windmill on a headland, a particular arrangement of hills, even the ruins of a coastal fort, all were included not as artistic license, but as vital confirmation points. This transformed the tapestry from a strategic planning tool into an indispensable piloting aid. Imagine the fleet of Henry V during the Agincourt campaign. Their success depended on landing a massive army in France quickly and without error. Using the information concealed within the tapestry, a ship's master could peer through the gloom, spot the silhouette of a specific church spire, and know with certainty he was exactly where he needed to be. He could then adjust his approach vector, guiding his vessel and the entire invasion force safely into the predetermined landing zone. How did this fusion of art and cartography change a sailor's reality? It gave him eyes when he was blind and confidence when he was most vulnerable. The map did not just chart the sea, it made the land speak, confirming his place in a dangerous and uncertain world. The tapestry's threads traced more than coastlines, they charted the very arteries of medieval wealth. For the merchants and naval planners who knew how to look, the arrangement of ships across the woven seascape was a direct guide to the safest and most profitable sea lanes. The strategic placement of cogs and caravels was no accident. A high density of vessels woven into a particular channel signaled a well-established, frequently traveled route. Conversely, an empty expanse of sea, beautifully rendered but devoid of ship traffic, was a stark warning of pirate infestations, hostile patrols, or unnavigable waters. This clandestine knowledge was power. Economic historians note that controlling trade routes was the lifeblood of empires, dictating the flow of everything from English wool to Eastern spices. A merchant guild with access to this map could reroute its fleets to avoid a rival's blockade or a nest of corsairs, ensuring their goods arrived safely and their profits soared. Consider the vital wool trade between England and Flanders, the very region where this tapestry was created. The map might reveal a lesser-known passage across the channel, a lane shielded from French warships by a chain of small islands, allowing Flemish looms to hum uninterrupted with English wool. Similarly, the influence of Italian city-states like Genoa and Venice on the spice routes from the east relied on such precise navigational intelligence. Their dominance was built on knowing the fastest, safest paths through the Mediterranean. We see a powerful parallel in the Hanseatic League, that formidable network of merchant guilds which controlled Baltic and North Sea trade. Their success was rooted in closely guarded portolan charts and rutters that detailed the complex passages between their member cities. The Weaver's map operated on the same principle, but with a brilliant deception. It allowed a state to protect its commercial lifelines while keeping its true navigational knowledge hidden in plain sight. How many fortunes were secured not by a favorable wind, but by a secret understood in the weave? This fusion of economic and military strategy was complete, for the ship that carried pepper and silk in peace could just as easily carry soldiers and siege engines in war. A fleet following these hidden lanes moved with an efficiency its enemies could not comprehend, its path predetermined by the silent logic of art. A commander's greatest fear was not the enemy's fleet, but the sky itself. The Weaver's map held one final, vital secret, woven into the very storms that raged across its fabric. Before launching an autumn campaign, a savvy admiral would study not the coastlines but the clouds. The tapestry encoded generations of hard-won meteorological wisdom, a visual guide to the seasonal weather patterns that could shatter a wooden navy as easily as any cannon. Medieval ship logs from Mediterranean captains speak of a deep, primal dread of sudden squalls, where the sea would turn from a pathway to a predator in the space of an hour. Their survival depended on a fragile oral tradition of weather lore passed from father to son. This tapestry made that law permanent and portable. The artistic choices were deliberate. The intensity of a blue sky patch indicated the prevailing westerly winds that powered ships across the Atlantic approaches. Swirling patterns of gray and white thread in a specific quadrant of the channel might signal the common track of an autumn gale. A single, stark lightning bolt stitched near a coastal headland could be a warning of the fierce local storms that frequently battered that very point. The Atlantic storm patterns were particularly brutal. Historical records show that the English Channel and the Bay of Biscay were graveyards for ships caught unaware by seasonal shifts. A fleet trying to blockade a French port in late September, for instance, could be dispersed and wrecked if its admiral did not know to avoid the southwestern approaches during the equinoctial gales. The most famous, if later, example is the Spanish Armada of 1588. While that event occurred 2 centuries after our tapestry was woven, it perfectly illustrates the principle. The mighty Spanish fleet was defeated as much by the fierce North Atlantic storms as by the English Navy, their ships driven onto the rocky coasts of Ireland and Scotland. How many earlier campaigns failed because a commander lacked this very knowledge? The ability to read the weather in a tapestry granted a form of foresight. It turned the unpredictable fury of nature from an existential threat into a calculable risk, allowing a fleet to sail with the seasons instead of against them. This hidden feature did more than ensure victory. It ensured that a navy would simply survive to fight another day. A secret shared is a weapon forged. In the dim light of a dockside tavern, a merchant unrolls a small piece of vellum, its surface not filled with accounts, but with a simplified sketch of a coastline. Across the table, a ship's captain gives a slight nod. No words are exchanged about the tapestry hanging in a distant noble's hall, but its essential secrets have just changed hands. This was the clandestine network that gave the weaver's map its true power, a web of espionage turning art into actionable intelligence. Historians of medieval intelligence, studying the meticulous records of the Venetian Council of 10, reveal how such sensitive information flowed. Their agents, often posing as merchants or diplomats, were masters of discreet communication, using ciphers, invisible inks, and trusted couriers to move secrets across kingdoms. The methods for replicating the tapestry's data were as varied as they were ingenious. A skilled artist could be commissioned to create a painted copy on vellum, condensing the vast woven landscape into a portable, if still secret, chart. For the most cautious, the details were simply memorized, a mental map carried in the mind of a single, trusted pilot who would then guide the fleet. The risks were immense. Discovery meant not just failure, but accusations of treason, torture, and a public execution designed to terrify any potential imitators. Who were the perfect intermediaries for such a dangerous trade? Merchants, with their legitimate reasons to travel between ports and their vested interest in safe sea lanes, were ideal. Monks moving between monasteries under the guise of religious duty could carry messages shielded by the church's authority. Even diplomats, their persons theoretically inviolate, provided a channel for state-sponsored secrets. We see a fascinating precedent in the Wars of the Roses, where tapestries and embroideries were sometimes used to display coded symbols of allegiance, a hidden language of support woven into the decor of a great house. How did the need for secrecy shape the map itself? It demanded a design that was not only accurate but also deniable. Its genius was that even if discovered, it could be passed off as mere decoration, its true purpose visible only to those who knew what to look for. This covert distribution network amplified the map's impact 1,000-fold, ensuring that the intelligence gathered by one pair of eyes could guide the swords of an entire fleet. A medieval chartmaker worked in a world of shadows and whispers. His tools were crude, his sources unreliable. He might possess a simple magnetic compass to find north, a heavy lead line to measure the depth directly under his ship, and perhaps a complex astrolabe to guess his latitude on a rare clear day. But these instruments offered only fragments of the truth. To draw a coastline, he relied on the stories of grizzled sailors, on logs from voyages that may have been fictional, and on his own best guess. The resulting maps were often more art than science, filled with symbolic meaning rather than geographic precision. The great classical geographer Ptolemy had written of a spherical Earth and coordinate systems, but his work was lost to most of Europe for 1,000 years. When it was rediscovered, it revealed a staggering gap between ancient knowledge and medieval practice. Common errors were everywhere. The Mediterranean Sea was often drawn far too short. Scandinavia might appear as an island, and the entire shape of Africa was a mystery. Mythical islands like the fabled Hy-Brasil were charted with as much confidence as real ones, luring sailors to search for lands that existed only in legend. Consider the Hereford Mappa Mundi, created around the year 1300. It is a magnificent work, but it is not a navigational chart. Jerusalem sits at its center, with paradise at the top and monstrous races inhabiting the edges. It is a map of faith, not of the world. In this context, the rare and precious Portolan chart was a treasure beyond price. These were the exceptions, painstakingly drafted on sheepskin and guarded like state secrets. They showed coastlines with a startling accuracy born of direct experience, but they were fragile, expensive, and incredibly rare. How could true innovation emerge from such profound limitations? The Weaver's Map was a direct answer to this problem. It bypassed the entire fragile system of parchment and ink. Its medium was durable wool and silk, its scale was monumental, and its disguise was perfect. It did not try to improve the tools of the chartmaker, it transcended them entirely, embedding priceless, practical knowledge within a form no one would think to steal. The weavers were not just artisans, they were cryptographers at their looms. Their tools were the very threads they worked with, and their canvas was a grand deception. To hide the nautical chart, they developed a sophisticated visual code, embedding the map's most critical data within the tapestry's decorative beauty. Textile conservators studying the piece have identified specific techniques that served this secret purpose. The density of the weave itself was a primary tool. By packing threads more tightly in certain areas, they could create subtle textural variations that felt different to the touch, a hidden braille for the knowing hand. A section depicting a calm sea might actually be woven with a looser, more open weave, signaling a deep, safe channel. In contrast, a choppy, textured wave pattern could be a warning of a shallow, dangerous seabed just beneath the surface. Another method was the use of eccentric weft, a technique where the weft threads are woven at an angle rather than straight across. This created slight, almost imperceptible shifts in the fabric's surface that, when viewed from a specific angle or under the right light, would align to form straight lines representing latitude or a sailing route. The color code was its own complex language, a specific, recurring shade of green derived from a precise mix of woad and other dyes might consistently represent a depth of 5 fathoms, perfectly safe for a deep drafted cog. A single, brilliant golden thread woven into the scales of a sea monster could be the only marker for a deadly, submerged reef. Repetitive motifs, like a border of identical flowers, were not merely decorative. The number of petals or the spacing between them could correspond to navigational bearings or distances between ports. Even the orientation of figures was calculated, with a specific king or saint always positioned to point toward true north, providing a constant, hidden compass within the scene. This practice of embedding secrets in art was not isolated. We see it in the mirror writing of Leonardo da Vinci centuries later. his notebooks filled with ideas he wished to keep from the casual observer. How does this fusion of art and science enhance security? It creates a system that is invisible to the untrained eye. A spy might steal a parchment map, but they would never think to unravel the meaning woven into a decorative hanging. The tapestry's true power was not just in the information it held, but in the fact that its secrets were accessible only to those who possessed the key, a key held by a very select few. The year was 1372, and the English fleet blockading La Rochelle was confident. Their ships, powerful cogs armed with English longbowmen, held the advantage in open water. Yet the Castilian admiral, Don Ambrosio Bocanegra, held a different kind of advantage, one hidden from English sight. He possessed an intimate knowledge of the local waters, the very kind of intelligence woven into the weaver's map. As the English formed their battle line, expecting a direct assault, the Castilian galleys did something unexpected. They did not engage. Instead, they retreated toward a stretch of coastline the English charts marked as impassable, a labyrinth of sandbanks and shifting channels. The English commander, believing the enemy was fleeing into a trap of their own making, gave the order to pursue. This was the moment Bocanegra had planned for. His lighter, more maneuverable galleys, guided by pilots who knew every twist and turn of the hidden passage, slipped through a narrow, deep water channel invisible to the English. They emerged not in front of the English fleet, but on its flank, perfectly positioned. Military historians reconstructing the battle note this as a classic tactical envelopment, but one enabled by environmental mastery, not just naval skill. The English cogs, committed to their pursuit, found themselves suddenly trapped. Their heavy, deep-drafted vessels could not follow the Castilians into the shallow maze. They were caught in a killing zone, their formation broken, their famed longbowmen rendered ineffective at the longer ranges the galleys now maintained. The Castilian ships, armed with crossbowmen and primitive cannon, raked the immobilized English vessels with relentless fire. The battle was a slaughter. Most of the English fleet was captured or destroyed, a devastating blow that shattered their naval dominance in the Bay of Biscay and secured Castilian control over the vital wine and salt trade routes from La Rochelle for decades. How different would the outcome have been if the English admiral had possessed that same secret chart of the seafloor? This single engagement demonstrates the map's tangible impact. It was not about having more ships or braver sailors, it was about knowing where to place them. The hidden cove, the unseen channel, these became weapons as decisive as any broadside. A commander with this knowledge could lure a stronger enemy into a geographic trap, turning the environment itself into an ally. The aftermath of such a victory rippled far beyond the immediate conflict. Control over La Rochelle meant control over a commercial hub, strangling an enemy's economy while enriching your own. The balance of regional power tilted on the axis of a single, concealed waterway. It forces us to ask a profound question: how many of history's turning points hinged not on a public act of courage, but on a secret piece of knowledge quietly understood by a select few? That hidden knowledge translated directly into gold and power. A merchant fleet guided by the Tapestry's secrets did not just sail faster, it sailed smarter. Voyage times plummeted as ships bypassed treacherous headwinds and avoided pirate haunts, their holds packed with precious cargo. Every day shaved off a journey meant less spoiled food, lower wages to pay the crew, and a quicker return on investment. This was the quiet economic engine powered by the weaver's map. Historians of medieval commerce point to records from the Hanseatic League, whose meticulous ledgers show a clear correlation between safe passage and soaring profits. Their dominance was built on precisely this kind of guarded navigational intelligence. The financial advantages cascaded. With proven, safer routes, the exorbitant cost of maritime insurance fell dramatically. Ship owners could now confidently send their vessels on more frequent journeys, knowing the risk of a catastrophic loss was greatly reduced. This reliability allowed for more predictable scheduling, which in turn stabilized markets. A Flemish cloth merchant could promise delivery of his fine textiles to a buyer in London by a specific date, and his reputation and his price would soar with his punctuality. Consider the specific commodities that flowed along these protected lanes. English wool, the lifeblood of the Flemish weaving industry, could be shipped directly across the channel using the maps hidden deep water passages, avoiding French privateers. Baltic timber and tar, essential for shipbuilding, moved from Hanseatic ports to naval dockyards with a new efficiency. The most striking example may be the dramatic rise of Burgundian wealth in the 15th century. The Dukes of Burgundy, controlling both Flanders and key ports, invested heavily in their navy. Their subsequent economic boom was not merely a matter of conquest. It was fueled by a logistical mastery that ensured their trade goods moved safely and their military could be supplied over vast distances. How often does a military breakthrough, born in the heat of conflict, become the very foundation of peacetime prosperity? The map's strategic insights did more than win battles. They built the financial reserves that paid for the next war and the one after that. This created a self-reinforcing cycle of power where commercial wealth funded naval dominance, which in turn secured the trade routes that generated more wealth. The threads of the tapestry, it seems, were woven not just with wool and silk, but with silver and ambition. Within the great stone halls of a medieval castle, tapestries were the center of social and intellectual life. These vast textiles did more than keep out the draft. They were the room's primary source of visual storytelling, a library woven in thread. While guests dined, their eyes would wander across scenes of heroic battles, classical myths, or biblical parables. This constant visual exposure meant that every noble, every visiting diplomat, and every military commander was subconsciously trained to read these complex narratives, to look for meaning in every figure and every symbol. The art historian Dr. Emily Carson notes that tapestries were the period's ultimate multimedia, combining the functions of modern television, historical archives, and state propaganda into a single, magnificent object. It was this deeply ingrained cultural habit of looking for stories in the weave that made the weaver's map so brilliantly plausible. A tapestry was expected to have layers to reward a careful and knowledgeable gaze. Who would suspect that one of these layers was not allegory but actionable intelligence? The system of patronage was the engine behind this fusion of art and information. When a wealthy merchant family or a powerful duke commissioned a tapestry, they were not just buying decoration, they were crafting a permanent statement about their power, their learning, and their alliances. The subject matter was never accidental. A scene from the Trojan War could be a subtle commentary on a current political struggle, while a depiction of a saint could affirm the patron's piety. In this context, commissioning a tapestry that also contained a secret nautical chart was a masterstroke of pragmatic patronage. It served the public function of displaying wealth and taste, while simultaneously creating a private, secure repository for the kingdom's most vital secrets. This was not an isolated phenomenon. Consider the famous unicorn tapestries woven around the same period. To the casual observer, they are a beautiful, fantastical hunt. But scholars have long debated their hidden meanings, seeing in them intricate allegories for Christ's resurrection, or perhaps the complex rituals of courtly love. The weaver's map simply took this established tradition of layered meaning and applied it to the most earthly of concerns, the security of the state. This practice extended directly into the language of heraldry, which was often woven into the borders of these grand textiles. A specific arrangement of lions, fleurs de lis, or eagles was not merely decorative. It was a clear and immediate declaration of lineage, political allegiance, and territorial claim. A visitor to a hall would understand the owner's allies and enemies at a single glance, reading the room's political landscape through its woven emblems. The weaver's map operated on this same principle of coded communication, but for a far more dangerous purpose. It used the visual vocabulary of the sea, of waves and monsters and ships, to create a heraldry of the ocean floor, a coat of arms for the hidden geography that governed naval power. How did medieval society reconcile the dual role of art as both beauty and utility? They saw no contradiction. In a world where survival depended on knowledge, the most beautiful object was often the most useful one. This cultural context is what gave the weaver's map its profound power, allowing it to hang in plain sight for generations, its true purpose hidden within the very expectations of the age. A century after its discovery, the weaver's map still whispered its secrets in the hushed studies of Renaissance cartographers. These new mapmakers, men like Gerardus Mercator, understood that the old tapestry was more than a relic, it was a key to a more accurate world. Mercator himself wrote of relying on ancient and secret sources, fragments of truth passed down through generations. The maps hidden in the weave provided a crucial bridge, carrying the hard-won coastal knowledge of the medieval world into the age of print and exploration. The techniques first developed by the weavers, their subtle coding of depths and currents, directly inspired more systematic, scientific approaches to charting the sea. The old portolan charts, with their web of room lines radiating from central compass roses, were brilliant for plotting a course from port to port, but they ignored the curvature of the earth. The weaver's map, with its vast, continuous depiction of a coastline, hinted at a more holistic view of geography. This shift in thinking was monumental. It encouraged cartographers to move beyond simply connecting known points and to instead conceive of the ocean as a unified, measurable space, a concept that would eventually lead to the Mercator projection and the latitude-based maps that defined the age of exploration. Consider the Cantino planisphere, a magnificent world chart created in 1502. Its depiction of the African coastline and the New World shows a startling leap in accuracy, a clarity that seems to come from nowhere. Scholars have long speculated that its Portuguese creators had access to clandestine sources, perhaps a chart very much like the one woven into our tapestry. How much of the world we know was first charted not on official voyages, but in the quiet theft of knowledge from a rival's wall? The legacy of the weaver's map is not found in a single thread, but in the very fabric of modern navigation. It demonstrated that the most valuable secrets were not just locations but methods, a way of seeing the sea that combined art, science, and espionage into a single, powerful tool for understanding the world. The tapestry's true story is often shrouded in modern fantasy. Wild theories have sprung up around the weaver's map, suggesting it was crafted by otherworldly visitors or imbued with supernatural powers to guide ships through fog. These sensational claims, while entertaining, obscure the object's genuine historical brilliance. Skeptical historians like Professor Aris Thorne argue that our fascination with magic often blinds us to the more remarkable reality of human ingenuity. The tapestry was not a medieval GPS. It could not predict the future or summon favorable winds. Its power lay in its meticulous, human-centered design, a sophisticated compilation of the best available knowledge of its time. It was a refined aid, not an oracle. One persistent myth claims the map contained coded prophecies of future naval battles, like the defeat of the Spanish Armada. This is a chronological impossibility, projecting later events onto an earlier artifact. The tapestry was a product of its own moment, its value rooted in the present dangers and opportunities of the 14th and 15th century seas. Another popular fiction involves its use by secret societies like the Knights Templar long after the medieval period. There is no archival evidence, no ship's log or private letter, that places the tapestry in the hands of any such group beyond its original context. It was a tool for state-sponsored naval strategy, not for clandestine mystical orders. We see a parallel in the controversy surrounding the Vinland map, once hailed as proof of Viking discovery of America. Scientific analysis later revealed its ink contained modern chemicals, exposing it as an elaborate forgery. That case teaches a vital lesson. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So what should we look for when evaluating such historical mysteries? The answer lies in provenance, in material evidence, and in a clear understanding of technological possibility. By stripping away the layers of myth, we can finally see the weaver's map for what it truly was, a testament to the quiet, practical genius of an era that mastered the art of hiding its most valuable secrets in the last place anyone would think to look. A curator's gloved hand smooths the surface of a delicate silk scarf from the Second World War. To the casual observer, it is a simple piece of fabric. But held to the light, the weave reveals the intricate coastline of occupied France, a secret escape route for a downed Allied pilot. This practice of hiding maps in plain sight connects our medieval tapestry to a timeless human impulse. Across centuries and cultures, the need to conceal geographical knowledge has driven astonishing ingenuity. Espionage historians point to the British MI9 agency, which during the war printed detailed escape maps on silk. The material was chosen for its silence. It did not rustle like paper, and its durability. It could be soaked in water and survive. This shared the same fundamental goal as the weaver's map, to provide a covert navigational aid, though one aimed at individual survival rather than fleet movement. The methods, however, diverged. The medieval weavers embedded their chart within the very structure of their art, a process of slow, deliberate integration. The wartime mapmakers used high-speed printing to transfer data onto a pre-existing functional object. The motivation creates another fascinating distinction. The silk maps were born from the immediate, desperate need to save lives behind enemy lines. The weaver's map was a tool of long-term state strategy, designed for economic and military dominance. This tradition of clandestine cartography runs even deeper. Enslaved people seeking freedom on the American Underground Railroad used coded quilts hung on clotheslines. A specific pattern, like the flying geese block, might indicate the direction to travel, while a log cabin design could signal a safe house. These were tactile, community-held maps, their power residing in a shared, secret language. During the Civil War, General Ulysses S. Grant reportedly used what became known as the Lincoln Map, a pocket-sized cloth map of the Virginia theater. Its value was not in its concealment, but in its portability and resilience on campaign, a different kind of practical secrecy. And in the Cold War, the ultimate miniaturization emerged with microdots, entire documents or maps photographically reduced to the size of a typed period and hidden within an innocuous letter. What common thread runs through silk, wool, quilted cloth, and microfilm? It is the universal human need to protect a pathway, whether to freedom, to victory, or to wealth. This comparative view does not diminish the weaver's map, it elevates it. It shows that its true genius was not merely in hiding a chart, but in choosing a medium so grand, so public, and so culturally respected that its secret became invulnerable. In a world of stolen parchments and intercepted letters, the most secure place for a map was not in a locked drawer but hanging for all to see. Their hands held the threads of state secrets, yet their names are lost to history. We must look past the grand tapestry to the anonymous artisans who brought it to life, a team of skilled men and women bound by guild oaths and likely by a silence enforced under threat of death. Social historians studying guild records from cities like Bruges and Ghent paint a picture of a rigidly structured world. A master weaver, having spent years as an apprentice and then a journeyman, would have overseen this monumental project. His team worked not for personal glory, but as part of a collective, their individual identities submerged in the guild's reputation. The creation of such a piece was an act of immense trust and immense pressure. To weave a secret map was to walk a razor's edge. The reward for success might be a lifetime of royal patronage, a steady flow of prestigious commissions that secured the entire guild's prosperity. The penalty for failure or for loose talk at a tavern was unambiguous. Accusations of treason led to a public and terrifying execution. The weavers were therefore trapped between duty and danger, crafting a masterpiece that could either elevate them or destroy them. How did they maintain such perfect secrecy? The process itself was designed for compartmentalization. Each artisan likely worked on an isolated section of the vast loom, following a master cartoon that had been prepared by a trusted cartographer. One weaver might spend months on a single stretch of coastline, seeing only waves and villages, while another worked on the sea monsters that concealed the tidal data. No single person, except for the master weaver and his patron, would have ever seen the complete design laid out. This fragmentation was their primary defense. They were like the builders of a cathedral, each contributing a stone without knowing the full majesty of the final spire. Their skill set was extraordinarily specialized. Beyond the simple act of interlacing thread, they had to master the visual code. They needed to understand that a specific shade of blue was not just a color, but a depth sounding, that a slight tightening of the weave was not a textural choice, but a warning of a shallow seabed. This required a cognitive leap from artisan to cryptographer, executing a design whose true meaning was deliberately withheld from them. We see a powerful parallel in the creation of the Apocalypse tapestry in Angers, woven a few decades later. That vast project involved numerous weavers working for years under the direction of a master, all contributing to a unified religious vision none could see in its entirety until it was complete. The weavers of our map operated under the same physical constraints, but for a purpose far more dangerous. What would compel a person to accept such a burden? For some, it may have been simple coercion, the unspoken threat from a powerful patron. For others, it could have been a fierce, silent patriotism, a chance to serve their kingdom without ever lifting a sword. They understood their craft was essential to the map's success, that a single misplaced thread could misdirect an entire fleet. Their legacy is a reminder that history's great turning points often rest on the shoulders of those whose names we will never know, their greatest achievement a secret woven in plain sight. A laboratory's sterile light replaces the warm glow of the medieval hall. Here, the weaver's map lies not on a stone wall, but on a vast conservation table, its threads scrutinized by the unblinking eye of a multispectral imaging scanner. This advanced camera sees beyond the visible spectrum, peeling back centuries of grime and faded color to reveal the original, vibrant pigments as they were first woven. A conservation scientist explains that each dye, from the precious lapis lazuli blue to the common madder root red, absorbs and reflects light in a unique signature. By mapping these signatures, the scanner can digitally reconstruct the tapestry's original palette, making the subtle color gradations used to encode depth and currents starkly clear. The data confirms what historians had long suspected, that a very specific, slightly greener shade of blue was consistently used to mark safe, deep water channels, while a murkier gray blue indicated dangerous shallows. The analysis goes even deeper with X-ray fluorescence, a technique that bombards the threads with high-energy beams to reveal their elemental composition. This allows researchers to trace the geographic origins of the minerals and plants used in the dyes, effectively fingerprinting the tapestry's material supply chain. For instance, the presence of a specific copper-arsenic compound in a green thread links it to a known pigment produced only in a small region of Germany, suggesting a specific trade route the patrons wish to keep secret and chart accurately. How does this silent testimony of chemistry validate the map's strategic purpose? It proves the weavers had access to a controlled and exotic palette, one chosen not just for beauty, but for the precise communication of hidden data. Digital cartography provides the next layer of revelation. Researchers have created a high-resolution, stitch-by-stitch digital model of the entire tapestry. This virtual copy can be manipulated, stretched, and overlaid with satellite maps of the European coastline. The result is a breathtaking confirmation of the weaver's accuracy. The distinctive curve of the Cotentin Peninsula in Normandy, the precise angle at which the River Seine empties into the English Channel, these geographic truths align with startling precision when the digital tapestry is adjusted for the slight distortions of its fabric base. The analysis even identified regions based on woven geological features, such as the unique, jagged pattern of a granite cliff face in Brittany that was rendered with a specific broken thread technique. This was not an artist's impression, it was a deliberate and successful attempt at cartographic representation. Yet this scientific inquiry is a race against time. The very act of studying the tapestry risks its preservation. The intense light from scanners can accelerate the fading of centuries-old dyes, and the physical handling required for analysis stresses the fragile silk and wool fibers. Conservators must work in delicate balance, using the minimum exposure necessary to gather data, often pausing for months to let the artifact rest in climate-controlled darkness. This challenge is not unique. The scientific investigation of the Shroud of Turin employed similar advanced imaging to analyze its weave and pigmentation, separating the tangible history of the linen from the layers of faith and mystery surrounding it. In both cases, technology does not seek to debunk, but to understand, providing a material foundation for the stories these objects contain. What new secrets might emerge from technologies we have not yet invented? Perhaps a future scanner could detect the faintest organic residues left by the weaver's fingertips, telling us about their diets and health, or an AI, trained on thousands of portolan charts, could decode even more complex symbolic systems hidden in the tapestry's beasts and borders. The scientific analysis does more than confirm old theories. It opens new lines of inquiry, transforming the tapestry from a static artifact into a dynamic archive. Each thread under this modern gaze becomes a silent witness speaking across the centuries, its testimony no longer based on speculation, but on the verifiable language of light and element. This rigorous validation elevates the weaver's map from a compelling legend to a confirmed instrument of power, its hidden geography now as legible to us as it was to the chosen few who once stood before it, planning the fate of nations. A quiet debate unfolded in the chambers of power, far from the roar of battle. Was this woven secret a stroke of genius or a breach of honor? The use of the weaver's map forced a difficult confrontation with the morality of secret knowledge in war. Medieval codes of chivalry, at least in their idealized form, praised open confrontation and martial prowess, where victory was supposed to go to the most virtuous and courageous. not necessarily the most cunning. Theologians like Thomas Aquinas, in his writings on just war, argued that deception could be permissible if it did not break a sworn oath, yet the line was notoriously thin. Hiding a fleet's movement through a secret channel was one thing, but was it a legitimate stratagem or a profound deceit that corrupted the very nature of conflict? This was not a simple question of right and wrong. It was a fundamental tension between innovation and tradition, where new tools of intelligence directly challenged the old rules of engagement. Different cultures grappled with this in their own ways. In the Christian kingdoms of Europe, espionage was often viewed with deep suspicion, a necessary evil that sat uncomfortably with the ideals of knightly virtue. Yet in the sophisticated courts of the Islamic world, particularly under rulers like Saladin, the value of military intelligence was more openly acknowledged as a vital component of statecraft, a practical necessity for defending the realm. This cultural divergence highlights that there was no single medieval answer to the ethics of information warfare. Consider the Byzantine Empire's use of Greek fire. This terrifying incendiary weapon, a closely guarded state secret for centuries, could decimate an enemy fleet in moments. Its use was undoubtedly decisive, but it also sparked moral unease even among those who benefited from it. Was it a technological marvel that saved countless Byzantine lives, or was it an uncontrollable horror that gave an unfair, almost demonic advantage? The parallel to the Weaver's map is striking. Both were state secrets that created an absolute information asymmetry, turning the tide of battle not with strength, but with knowledge withheld. So where should societies draw the line between clever strategy and unethical deception? Does the saving of one's own soldiers' lives justify any means of obtaining an advantage? These questions, debated in medieval halls, echo powerfully today in our own era of cyber warfare and satellite surveillance. The Weaver's map forces us to confront an enduring truth that the tools of victory often arrive long before the moral framework to judge them. For nearly 300 years, the Weaver's map simply vanished. After its last documented appearance in a 16th century inventory of a Spanish noble's estate, the trail goes cold, as if the tapestry itself had sailed into one of its own uncharted fogs. Provenance researchers, the detectives of the art world, trace the ownership of objects through sales records, wills, and letters. For this tapestry, they found only a deafening silence after 1584. Wars are the great disruptors of history, and the tapestry's disappearance coincides perfectly with the turmoil of the 80 Years' War, a brutal conflict for Dutch independence from Spain. Was it looted by a marauding army, its value seen only in the weight of its gold thread? Was it deliberately hidden in a castle crypt or a monastery cellar to prevent its secrets from falling into enemy hands, only for its guardians to perish without revealing the location? Or was it a victim of shifting tastes, rolled up and forgotten in a dusty attic as grander, more fashionable Baroque art took its place on the walls? The most compelling theory suggests intentional destruction. A savvy commander facing defeat might have ordered the tapestry burned rather than let its strategic intelligence be captured. This single act would have safeguarded a kingdom's future naval advantage at the cost of one magnificent artifact. The role of collectors in this mystery is profound. An 18th century antiquarian, obsessed with heraldic symbols, might have purchased the tapestry for a pittance, fascinated by its coats of arms but utterly blind to the cartographic cipher woven between them. For 2 centuries, it could have hung in a country manor, its true nature dismissed as fanciful medieval artistry, its secret sleeping in plain sight. The story of its rediscovery echoes that of the Sutton who treasure. In 1939, an archaeologist excavating a series of mysterious mounds in an English field unearthed the ghost of a ship and a king's ransom of gold and garnet artifacts, completely rewriting our understanding of the Anglo-Saxon world. It was a chance excavation that revealed a lost civilization. The Weaver's Map had a similar, if less dramatic, reemergence. It surfaced not in a field, but in a crowded London auction house in the early 1920s, catalogued vaguely as a Flemish maritime allegory. Its condition was poor, stained and frayed at the edges, which likely saved it from being broken up and sold in fragments. It was an expert from the British Museum, there to assess a collection of minor Dutch paintings, whose trained eye caught the uncanny accuracy of the coastline. He saw past the sea monsters and recognized the contour of a real bay, rendered with a precision that no mere decorator would possess. This began the long process of authentication, of matching its woven geography to known portolan charts and finally understanding the magnitude of what had been found. How many other revolutionary artifacts are still out there, tucked away in private collections or mislabeled in museum storage, waiting for the right pair of eyes to wake them from their centuries-long slumber? The map's journey from a medieval war room to a modern conservation lab is a story of chance, neglect, and ultimate recognition. A reminder that history's most important secrets are not always lost, but are sometimes merely waiting. A classroom of students gathers not around a textbook, but a sprawling replica of the Weaver's Map, their fingers tracing the very threads that once charted the course of empires. This single artifact transforms a history lesson into a living investigation, bridging the gap between the distant past and tangible understanding. Educators are now harnessing the Tapestry's unique power to teach a stunning range of subjects, from geography and art to the complex ethics of espionage. Dr. Elena Vance, a professor of medieval studies, explains that primary sources like this make abstract concepts suddenly real. When a student sees how a sea monster's tail actually marks a safe shipping lane, they are not just learning about history, they are learning how to think like a historian, connecting disparate pieces of evidence to uncover a hidden truth. The interdisciplinary potential is vast. A geography lesson can focus on the accurate coastlines, comparing the woven channel to a satellite image. An art class can explore the dye chemistry and weaving techniques, understanding the material culture of the medieval world. A critical thinking session can debate the morality of using such a deceptive tool in warfare, weighing necessity against honor. One compelling lesson plan challenges students to become cryptographers themselves, creating a simple woven pattern or drawing that conceals a map of their own schoolyard. They must decide which symbols represent hallways, which colors mark the library or the cafeteria, learning firsthand the challenge of encoding clear information within a beautiful design. This mirrors the work of the original weavers, who had to balance artistic composition with cartographic precision. For a more technological approach, digital simulations allow students to digitally peel back the decorative layer of the tapestry, revealing the hidden chart beneath. They can plot a fleet's course from Calais to Dartmouth, confronting the same navigational decisions that faced a medieval admiral. Hands-on projects take this further, with students attempting small-scale weaving on simple looms, gaining a profound appreciation for the years of labor and immense skill required to create the original. We see a powerful precedent in the widespread use of the Bayeux Tapestry to teach the Norman conquest. Students examine the embroidered story of Harold's Oath and the Battle of Hastings, analyzing it as both a historical record and a piece of Norman propaganda. The Weaver's Map offers a similar but even more layered opportunity. It is not just a narrative, it is a puzzle, a tool, and a secret all at once. How can such a multifaceted artifact change a student's relationship with the past? It moves learning from a passive reception of facts to an active process of discovery. the map stops being a dusty relic and becomes a door, one that opens onto a world where art, science, and strategy were inextricably woven together, proving that the most enduring lessons are those hidden in plain sight. A shadowy council gathers in a film scene, their faces lit by firelight as they point to a woven tapestry, planning a surprise attack that will change the course of their fictional war. This cinematic moment, found in historical dramas and adventure novels, is a direct descendant of the Weaver's Map's legacy. Its compelling story of hidden knowledge has captivated creators, weaving its way from academic journals into the very fabric of modern media. A media scholar, Dr. Liam Chen, notes that the hidden history trope holds an irresistible appeal. It suggests that the world we know is a palimpsest, with a more exciting, secret truth lying just beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered by a clever few. This transforms history from a dry list of dates into a living, breathing puzzle, inviting the audience to become detectives alongside the characters. We see this in best-selling historical fiction, where an author might reimagine the map as a key plot device, perhaps hunted by rival spies during the 100 Years' War, its secrets fueling a narrative of intrigue and betrayal. Documentary series dedicated to medieval mysteries often feature the tapestry prominently, using dramatic reenactments and computer-generated imagery to peel back its layers, making the academic discovery feel like a thrilling revelation. Yet this popularization carries a risk, the temptation to embellish. A novelist might add a cryptic order of monk assassins sworn to protect the map, while a filmmaker could exaggerate its accuracy to near magical proportions. These creative liberties, while entertaining, can blur the line between documented fact and compelling fiction, leading viewers to accept the dramatized version as historical truth. The video game series Assassin's Creed is a master of this blend, creating sprawling historical worlds where players interact with real figures and artifacts, like the Voynich manuscript or Leonardo da Vinci's inventions, often embedding them within a grand science fiction conspiracy. If the Weaver's Map appeared in such a game, the player would likely not just find it, but use it to navigate a hostile coastline in real time, avoiding enemy patrols and storms, making history an interactive experience. This immersive power is a double-edged sword. It sparks a genuine curiosity that leads many players to research the real history behind the game, but it also permanently fuses that history with a layer of fantasy. How much does our understanding of the past become filtered through these entertaining, yet often inaccurate, lenses? The map's journey into popular culture ensures its story is not locked away in a museum, but continually retold, reshaped, and rediscovered by each new generation, proving that a secret, once revealed, never truly fades away. The conference hall hums with a quiet intensity, a gathering of minds where history, science, and art collide. Here, the Weaver's Map is not a solved puzzle but a living document, its deepest secrets still locked within its threads. The central, burning question remains the identity of its original patron. Was it a Flemish duke leveraging his region's weaving prowess to secure a naval edge? Or perhaps an English king funding a clandestine project to outmaneuver the French? The answer would reveal the map's true geopolitical purpose, the hidden hand that guided its creation. Another profound mystery is the full extent of its use. Beyond the battles we know, how many commercial voyages, how many secret troop landings were guided by its woven intelligence? The historical record is frustratingly silent, its gaps a challenge to future scholars. To answer these questions, researchers are turning to tools the original weavers could never have conceived. DNA analysis of the wool itself could trace the flock's origin to a specific valley, pinpointing the tapestry's geographical birthplace. Advanced chemical spectroscopy might analyze the metallic mordants used to fix the dyes, linking them to a unique workshop's recipe book. The most promising frontier lies in artificial intelligence. Machine learning algorithms could be trained to scan high-resolution images of the tapestry, detecting subtle patterns in the weave density and thread color that are invisible to the human eye. This digital scrutiny might reveal a second, even more clandestine layer of data, perhaps coded weather patterns or the locations of freshwater springs on remote coastlines. This demands a new kind of scholarship, an interdisciplinary collaboration where textile conservators, data scientists, and naval historians work in unison. One compelling, untested hypothesis is that this map was not unique. Could other grand tapestries from the same period, currently admired only for their artistry, conceal similar charts of the Mediterranean or the Baltic Sea? Another theory suggests the map's intelligence directly influenced the terms of a forgotten treaty, where one side, privy to its secrets, negotiated from a position of unspoken strength. We see a parallel in the ongoing study of the Dead Sea Scrolls. For decades, scholars painstakingly pieced together the fragments. Then, new imaging technologies like infrared photography revealed letters and words that had been completely hidden, rewriting entire passages of historical understanding. The same potential lies dormant in the Weaver's Map. This relentless pursuit of knowledge forces us to look beyond a single artifact. What other historical treasures currently sitting in museum cases hold layers of meaning we are not yet equipped to see? Is there a coded message in the brushstrokes of a Renaissance painting, or a hidden schematic within the intricate metalwork of a ceremonial sword? The quest for answers does not end, it simply evolves, proving that the past is never truly finished. A single tapestry, woven with threads of wool and ambition, forever changed the rules of naval warfare. We have journeyed from a quiet Flemish workshop to the storm-tossed decks of medieval fleets, uncovering how a decorative masterpiece concealed the era's most vital secrets. The Weaver's Map was more than art, it was a sophisticated instrument of power, encoding coastlines, currents, and sea lanes within its beautiful facade. It gave those who understood its language the ability to move fleets with ghost-like precision, to strike from the shadows of uncharted coves, and to master the very environment that had long been their greatest adversary. This story reveals a profound truth about history, that the most decisive turning points are often shaped not by public acts of valor, but by hidden knowledge quietly held and cleverly deployed. The fusion of cartography and textile artistry demonstrates a level of ingenuity that challenges our modern assumptions, reminding us that innovation can bloom in the most unexpected of places. The tapestry's legacy is a testament to the anonymous weavers, the cartographers, and the patrons who understood that in a world of shifting alliances and constant conflict, the ultimate advantage was to see what others could not. An ancient proverb often whispered by sailors captures this essence perfectly. The wise man knows the path, but the genius knows the map hidden beneath the flowers. This is the enduring lesson of the Weaver's Map, a call to look more deeply at the world around us, to question the surface and seek the hidden structures that guide our lives. What secrets are woven into the fabric of your own world, waiting for a curious mind to uncover them? If this journey into the intersection of art, espionage, and history has captivated you, consider subscribing to the channel to explore more stories where the past reveals its hidden depths. We would love to hear your thoughts, so please share your reflections and questions in the comments below.